This is a 5-2 baby blue. That's the blue bird on the wall looking down at the fall of the frauds. So this is I was going over some flips earlier and I got flipped a message to kind of like give some more background on the queen, the Califia queens, because it's not really understood how they had their structure set up versus how the foreigners seen their structure. So I got another live to do after this, but I wanted to come on and touch on this first. Some of y'all seen me on here with idea from the goddess Glow Up, and we talked about the work that she do. This is similar to the function of the castle of the Califia's queens. The part they didn't tell us is 5 kings, or they call them the 5 bears, who are the chiefs responsible for being the guardians of the Califia castles. The main castle was a all-female resort where they went for healing, to solve life problems, and to use the sisterhood as a educational program by discussing with the other sisters who've already experienced it. Then these women is able to get back to balance, and then they go back home. And this was a big operation on the West Coast tribes historical record, but most of it is concealed in artwork throughout the land. So a lot of us don't see the artwork on the land. We only going by what is written in the history books. The 5 kings under, or the 5 Miku, chief elders, who was responsible for the warring factions to protect the queens, was all en route to Florida, and this is why they was able to go around South America with De Soto and the Califia queens. So once they figured that out, and they knew that from Lewis and Clark how we was moving across the land, because Lewis and Clark left Philadelphia area, what we call the Northwest Territory, or the Northeast Territory, the Michigan, Illinois, Minnesota, Ohio, and Indiana is the Northwest Territory. The settlers was never supposed to cross the Appalachians, but once they seen that the castles was empty, they rolled this into their grievance, or into their salvage logs, as the extended wreckage, using the protectorate agreement that the English bought from the French as the justification to survey the land. Yeah, look, they got a group of pale faces just watching all this stuff we doing, and they are telling the other pale faces exactly what we talking about in the terms that they people understand. So we reaching a lot of people with the information, and it's not just me. Dane Calloway, a heavy hitter, top cat, and a lot of people want us to just only focus on the transatlantic slave trade and get frustrated because we can't do that, because before the transatlantic slave trade existed, we was over here tribed up. We were running our own systems. They came, they disrupted our systems, and they used conjure magic to try to conquer the land. I'm here to tell them it didn't work. So the 5 chiefs have title or Mesoamerican deity status. But into modern terms, they just call them Afro chiefs because they old Mississippians and they come with the big old afros, and they all come with the weightlifting mentality, working with the steel. That's that big Tookie energy, right? If you go back to the main Pyru, right? His name is Puddin. Pyru is the mirror. So that's two chiefs, one red, one blue, right? And they got to have a black and gold chief, which should be represented by what we call in modern terms the Latin faction or the Latin family. And we call them Latin kings, MS-13, etc. But they all extended family members coming from southern Mexico down into San Salvador, bringing this all back to our consciousness. When they tribe up, they gonna be horrible until they recognized. And once the chiefs start remembering who they is, then their temperaments move out, because we was warring tribes used against each other, and we knew that the only remedy was to find I'm about to get back to Califia, was to find a cause for a treaty. So this is what the 5 kings under the Califias would have been doing in the process of tribing up, right? So when we see the Disney castle it burned down recently, but it was the replica. It was the replica of the castle that used to sit on Alcatraz Island that you hear about in Wonder Woman, right? If you go back to the story of Wonder Woman, the original Wonder Woman was a sister, and they replaced her with a pale face that they call Diana. And she was from Paradise Island. Funny, Paradise Island was the name that the native tongue spoke that referred to the island of the Califia queens as Paradise Island, because they say any woman that comes there automatically comes back healed. And so they labeled it as Paradise Island. Some of the slang terminologies throughout the years, they called them Amazonians, because remember, the Amazon is in South America. Y'all got to remember this, because they overlaying names of significant places so that they could confuse the actual location. The Amazonians was a tribe of women from the Amazon River basin that feeds north into the Gulf of Mexico. And they was in close contact with the Califia queens. This is how they split our forces, and it ended up falling into 2 war fronts against the Spanish conquistadors. We end up fighting in the Southwest against conquistadors, and we end up fighting in the Gullah Wars, Florida, in the against the conquistadors. You got to look at the Spanish overlay of the territories granted by the Vatican, because this is where they were sent to pillage gold from the people and to find a place to set up a country called Israel, because they kicked out of Europe. They didn't have nowhere to go, so they needed to find somewhere to be. Everybody native to the planet has a place on the planet where they belong. When you're not native to nowhere on the planet, you don't belong nowhere on the planet. But when you native to the planet is going to adjust your energy to wherever you at. And if you need to move, you're going to have an overwhelming desire to pack up and go somewhere else, because nature telling you you're on the wrong part of the land for who you are. So the Califia queens is the lady that would run it would be equivalent of what the Heidi do for the goddess Glow Up. And then she had a lot of people that worked there to help out with the cooking, the cleaning, the teaching of different classes that they had there. Everything from what we consider home economics in school today to what we consider housekeeping and homemaking, or what we would call wifely duties and motherly duties, overcoming the domestic obstacles. One of the problems with a whole slew of women is they do not know that they are silently suffering from caregiver syndrome, because they're so busy giving to everybody else that they already depleted, and they have no sister network set up to recharge, recover, and to see what they're doing right so they can do more of that, and see what they're doing wrong so they can do less of that. And the patriarchy don't want the women organizing and solving their own problems, so they offer them problem solvers in the form of DHS, in the form of family social services that doesn't do anything of significant value for the family's enrichment and betterment. So this is what the hostess of the Califia Queen's function was. She was to make sure that every tribe on the land had access to the training and the education of the women for what we would consider guardian angel duties, big mama duties, overseer of a family that's extended. Because after a while, she began to learn how to utilize the members of the family in the field that they chose to get in order for it to benefit the family. But we forgot all about that when we start going to war with these people. We start putting our culture down, right? So when they blew the castle up, they had to create a replica of the Califia castle, and they have to put it in the public forefront. So even if we forget that it happened, when we see the castle, we're going to wonder, where did the real castle go? Excuse me. We can look at the architecture of the replica and know that it's not the original. We can look at the texture of the visual impact, and it doesn't feel like the original. But all of the lighting replicated. All of the colors was replicated. The general outline of the design was all replicated. So they have to keep that to the forefront because they blew the castle up. Somebody know where the castle originally was. One of the chiefs going to wake up from the slumber and say, wait a minute. The Califia castle was where Alcatraz is. Why is it a prison there now? And then when you look across the land, you're going to say, oh, they turned all our castles into prisons. It makes perfect sense. Why wouldn't they turn the land that was Califia's castle, which we consider the sacred ground, into a prison if they turned all of our castles into prisons or state buildings and mental institutions? They repurposed the indigenous architecture to tell y'all that we only lived in the teepee, which nothing can be further for the truth, because the teepee was not how we lived. That's how we traveled. When we go great distances and we was riding on horseback or walking on foot, we pitched tents. We just called the tents we pitched teepees. And I'm not even sure that that's the original name we called them, or if that's something that the invaders came and called it and ascribed it to us, because a lot of the names of the tribes are not the names that they was before the invaders came, but they gave us exonyms to misidentify us and to use that for paper genocidal purposes. We got to remember, this has all been a war. It's been a war from the beginning of Columbus' arrival until now. The war evolved over time. If the war doesn't evolve, the people get annihilated, we all lose. So when it comes to the point where both sides are about to permanently lose, somebody had to have a sensibility to say, we need another way to fight this war. We wrapping this war up as we speak. This is what this is all about. This is the only reason why y'all be seeing me on social media, and I hate social media with a passion. I'm on here so that y'all can get the information that wake you up from the slumber and tell you that there's two groups of people in this war, and they look similar, but they different. They both got nappy hair and brown skin, but all skin folk ain't kinfolk. They look like us, but they ain't us. This part of the George Washington Challenge. And as part of the George Washington Challenge, it was a 200-year amnesia cycle, which is just a reenactment of a 2,000-year religious amnesia cycle, which is just a reenactment of a 4,000-year Exodus sleep cycle, which is just an extension of a 12,000 year to 15,000 year spell of Kingu. It takes us all the way back to what we call the Mount Sinai, the god Ninursin or Nanursin or Sin, and his Babylonian blood magic conjure system, because it's a system, it's not just one spell. The Babylonian sex magic system, it's not just one act, it's a whole bunch of sexual deviancies that goes into subjugating the energy field. Then you got the money magic, it's a whole system of controlling the wealth in the face of the people that they don't even know that they're losing it. All of this stuff, it's admiralty jurisdictionally enforced. Using the law of the high seas and the Uniform Commercial Code as the application of the Admiralty jurisdiction, and all of the laws fall up under the Uniform Commercial Code as codified enforcement regulations of the corporation. And it has nothing to do with the government of the law, land, the air, and the water, which is a great law which governs the people. So they use in the law of salvage. In the law of salvage, and they've been tagging our toes while we live in the form of birth certificates, and when we die in the form of death certificates, because we eternal beings and we always return. So they've been using those things to tag us, mark us as dead, and then cash the money in on our accounts. Well, they can't own it. So they put it in a trust for us. Once they put it in the trust, as the trust user or holder, the trustee, the person that's holding the trust, then they can use it. But they can't own it. Everything that they purchase got to be in the name of the trust. Go look up the Rockefeller Foundation. Right? Go look up the Carnegie Foundation. These foundations is to run the money through the trust so they can never say that they can never be accused of stealing from us. They was just using what was rightfully ours because we didn't know it was ours without our permission, because we didn't know that they needed our permission, and they used fraud to artificially secure our permission, becoming the trustees. That was all done under papal bull decrees. These papal bull decrees is what the discovery doctrine brings down all of those colonial regulations of the high seas to issue the white man's burden to civilize and turn into Christian the rest of the world. Once we get past that, then you have to look at land divisions. So when we're talking about reclaiming the land, we have to know that the CIA uses the media to put something right in your face, but it say one thing, but they only need a certain piece of information to know what it really means, right? So when these codes come up, then they see them, but they don't tell you what they're looking at, and they know what it means, right? All of the so-called secret agents But their training simulation is the study of the 5% nation's supreme mathematics and supreme alphabet. The study of the Nation of Islam's supreme alphabet. This is telling you how to read their codes, how to focus on what they're saying. Because they saying one thing, but they mean something else when they talking to us. It's called double speak, or it's called political jargon. When you go back to when they used to debate, rhetoric is what it was originally called. And then it went from being rhetoric to political jargon. All of these stuff is the bullshit that they made up to confuse us as to who we was, so that they can subjugate us and allow us to willingly participate in our own slavery. Forked tongue mean they speaking for two people. It don't mean that what they saying is not true. It's they coming with two agendas, right? And we, because of the Christian doctrine of the serpent in the garden and Adam and Eve, we think that forked tongue, speaking like a serpent, mean that they telling a lie. They not telling a lie. They coming with an agenda that somebody sent them with, right? But then they also have their own agenda. If their agenda and the person's agenda that they was sent with conflict, then there's an opportunity for you to cater to the agenda most favorable to you before you send them off on their way. There's so many agreements made in the secret societies that's not public access. But the agreements is expressed in the movement of the society. Who can do what and why can they get away with it? Who can't do what and why they can't get away with it? When you understand the function of an interim government, that's the only way you're going to realize how the police state that we call the United States actually function as an occupying force. And this is why you got police on the street. If you go look at any country overseas, before America go there, most of them don't have a police force. But when America leave, they can no longer survive without having a police force. That's because they still occupied. We don't know what that means because we don't study high politics, government, and we don't study the interaction between royalty and political constructs used to conceal who these royal members are. Then once we do, we still getting caught up in whitewash history and false narratives, which was all led to lead us astray. The only way to get back to the Sirat al-Mustaqim, the straight and narrow way, which is the right way, is for somebody to see all of the false narratives and say, hey, I'm going to tell my people what I see. Hopefully they can wake up well enough from my explanation of how it's working for it to no longer work on them consciously. It's a liberating factor. When somebody can tell you how a thing works, you no longer can be stuck with the fear of the function of that thing, but you can have a healthy respect for it. For example, I like to go fishing, but I'm not finna go fishing for no blue whale. He bigger than my boat. I don't even want to dive next to a great white shark because that's a bust with teeth. And if he hit me fast enough, I won't even know he's chewing me. So that's a healthy respect to stay out of his way. Shark attack, he won't never attack me because he ain't gonna never pop up in my shower. I'm not gonna never get attacked by no shark because he not gonna never pop up in my shower, in my swimming pool, or he might pop up in the Great Lakes, but I'll be able to see him before he get there. And it ain't likely he gonna live long in the Great Lakes because sharks just so happen to be saltwater. Well, unless you are a bull shark. A bull shark could come. But shit, it's so many canals and stuff now, he probably can't get through from the ocean to the Great Lakes. A healthy respect is, I don't mind going hiking, but when I realize that I'm laying next to a bear's den, I'm going to slide my ass on up out of there and go pitch my tent way yonder ways away from that bear. Right? I don't have a problem with being in nature, but I have a problem with being disrespecting the process that nature takes. Because as soon as you disrespect the process, you end up becoming processed by the process. I don't want to be the product of the processing of the process processing. Not me. You know, they got cougars out there, wolverines, bears. Look, they keep talking about we from Africa. Tell them that Big Rod said, we the ones introduced lions to Africa. They native to America. They ain't here no more. I'm talking about full-lane black-maned lions was here in America. The ones that was here was bigger than the ones in Africa. Now go ask them, why did the lion originate in America if we originated in Africa and we introduced the motherfucker? Oh, let's take it a step further. Yo, camels ain't native to the Middle East. Camels is native to Central and South America like alpacas. They cousins. But we took them over there, right? Because civilization began in the Americas. Oh, elephants too. You didn't know elephants is originally from the Americas. All this stuff can be looked up. It ain't even no secret no more. The original elephants was over here. This is why native traditional tribes still paint elephants in their artwork. They was already over here before we took them over there. Right? Just like if they escape the zoo now and start to repopulate on the land because of some kind of catastrophe and start to thrive, and then they're going to reform into a new species conducive to the land that's more similar to the one that used to be here than the ones that's over there, because they had to adapt to their climate. African elephants ain't from Africa, and Indian elephants ain't from India, and all of the elephants is from the Americas. Don't look it up. Don't believe nothing I'm telling you. But the elephant is the symbol for the matriarchy. And my mama said the trunk always got to be up. That's because the matriarch is always calling the clans back together. But we don't remember our culture, so we don't know how to read the totems when the elders flip them to us. Well, remember, the jaguar from South America is the origin of the African leopard. That's what they don't tell you. The jaguar of the Americas is the origin of the African leopard. The leopard don't exist unless the jaguar came first, because that's where they came from, because we had to take them over there. Right? If you look in the paintings from Africa and the Americas, all of the priests is the ones with the leopard print on. And the stealth priests are the ones represented by the Black Panther. That's the totem clan. It's an old Mississippian tribe. Go look up the Black Panther Brigade and you will find out that they was formed by a whole bunch of cats from the South. Them was some cool cats back then. Right? A Black Panther and a Pink Panther. Right? It's all coded in the symbolism, but we don't know how to read the symbols. So when we see the symbol for Califia, and they got that big old halo looking thing around her head, just so y'all know, that was an afro in real life. But they tell it to you in the artwork as if you don't know that the afro represents the sun around the head of the chief, while the people looking at him as the sun is sitting behind his head while he's sitting on top of the mound. But you don't know that because you don't remember your history. My mama said, don't worry, baby. You explain it to them where they understand it. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get through to these knuckleheads, because they don't want to hear no real stuff. They want to hear white man lies. And the white man ain't even white. That's the worst part of it. in this white man's world. The white man ain't even white in this white man's world. Somebody make that shit make sense to me. That's their status, their legal status, their legal standing. They want you to be a national instead of a sovereign, because if you're a national, you are subject to the sovereign that owns the nation, and the nation is the corporation. Yep. Go back to what General Patton said about the Black Panther Brigade. He said in the end, when these commies try to bring about World War III, it's going to be these Panther boys here that's going to save us all from the destruction of this enemy. That's General George Patton. All of them knew, right? When you get to a certain level in the military, you have to be briefed by tribal leaders on the land, but most of us don't know that. You can't call yourself a Joint Chief of Staff and haven't received an honorary chief position by one of the tribes of the land. It's just, you can't do it. It's against the rules, right? So this is why the military send tribal governmental officials to talk to political governmental officials, but they don't never broadcast it on y'all news. So y'all don't never know when they be having these tribal conventions. Yep, the frogmen was the ones that was coming out of the waters in the dark of night and attacking the Spaniards in the Everglades. That's how they got. That's why they started calling them frogmen, right? But we thinking that all this is new. We don't know that the Navy traced back to the Navy from the old Mississippians that used to run the Mississippi on what we call today a gambling boat. It wasn't a gambling boat. They call it a gambling boat, but it wasn't a gambling boat. There was a specific type of boat, and they used to roll them all out in the Gulf, fishing, scouting out people that was lost at sea or whatever in the Gulf, whatever was going on in the Gulf. And they had a counterpart that ran the Amazon, but we don't know nothing about that because they don't want to talk about it in the history books. And this is how you know when our ancestors said they didn't see no ships way back then, that they couldn't have been talking about they didn't see a vessel on the water. They had to be talking about the quintessential slave ship that they tried to paint the narrative, which is actually the blueprint for the Cathedral at Notre Dame University, where the slave narrative was hatched as an educational pursuit of warfare. And remember, education is the second pillar of people activity that the enemy has to control in order to control the narrative to suppress the psychology of the people. The sociology won't work if the psychology is bad. So they have to have a functional psychology to apply sociologically in order for it to work on a mass group of people, or too many of them will begin to glitch. They'll break from the program and begin to go back to what their DNA say. And then you're going to have a whole bunch of cats like Rod Hayes running around here saying, I don't got no problem with Africans, but I ain't from there. And then the gig is up. Now when you go on TikTok, when you go on Facebook, you go on Instagram, all of these youngsters, they know who they is. You can argue them down and tell them all of what your books say. They know what they sold telling them based on, and we still got references to us being here by the people that came that was writing at the contemporary time. But it's important that we realize that all of the education was rare. And those who were educated was few and far between. So when you read an educated individual's information before the 1900s, it's a 99.5% chance they was in the secret society. They didn't teach peasantry to read. They didn't teach the paupers, the poor, the servants, the the lower class. This is why the caste system was covered by race instead of by position, because when you have it governed by a work, like for instance in India, where your family's traditional labor field is your function of your class and your status within the society, then you have to educate them according to what's the educational standard. But when you use skin color, you only have to educate the people with the right skin color. This is all a trap by people that look like us to keep us from being educated. But you got to go back and look. These niggas that call themselves the white man is writing our stuff. And they telling us about a slave catcher coming to catch them. And he's writing this in perfect English. But he want us. In a time where if you get caught reading or writing, they supposed to murder you. But you ain't murdered. And not that I wish murder on them. It's just that you need to see through the narrative. It's a narrative. It's a control of a flow of information by the victors in order to keep those conquered. But soon as the ones they lied to say that's not what happened over here. The Califia Queens governed from Alaska all the way going into the northern portion of South America. That's a Maru land. Califia was an Amaru Native American, traced back to what they call today Azteca, but that's not how you properly pronounce it. But a lot of the pronunciation has been lost to translation by foreign agents who can't say the words of the native people. And this is why in Islam they steady crying about Tajweed, the perfect pronunciation of the Arabic, because a slight change in the pronunciation changes the whole meaning and context of a sentence without changing the sentence. Right? It's just like your girl can tell you the same thing in two different ways. One way she tell you, you know she happy with something. In the same statement, she can say it a different way, and you know she's dissatisfied just by how she said it. Right? So this is why a lot of the tribal tongue was deliberately, you got to remember, if we got caught speaking native tongue, we was murdered. But they tell us in the history books that if we got speaking the African tongue, we was getting murdered. It wasn't for speaking the African tongue. A mother got to speak something. It was for speaking the native tongue. They make fun of us because of our rapping. We used to do it in the native tongue. What make you think we're not going to learn how to develop it in English? And they called us Gopher Indians on the cartoon Underdog. When you go look up Gopher Indians on YouTube, it's going to bring you an episode of Underdog up. And the one feather chief is the scout chief. The full feather chief is the main chief. And the one feather, might be two feathers. But he's sitting there talking, he's rapping. And they making fun of us in our hip-hop culture long before you knew what hip-hop was. The Underdog cartoons came out as early as the 50s. It was probably in comic book form in the 30s and 40s. You got to remember that stuff. They don't do it all at one time. This is why we don't catch it. We don't catch the pieces to put the puzzle back together. They roll it out in stages. They get you used to watching something and used to laughing at it, and then they drop the truth in the middle of it. And now the truth has become a familiar joke. So when you see it playing out in real life, you don't take it serious. Look, from all the way up until I was about 3, maybe 4, me and my brother, he 1 year older than me, we didn't speak English. We had our own language. We started speaking English because we was getting whoopings for, we don't know what y'all talking about. right? So they forced us to speak the common language. We didn't naturally know English, but the native tongue that we was talking, we naturally knew it, and we naturally spoke it amongst ourselves. But we spoke English to other people. But we end up by not. If you don't use it, you lose it. Now I wish we could have kept talking that language all my life, so now that I would be able to use it as a template of translation. But pay attention to the children, and some of them will still get around each other, and you'll think they say bibble dibble dibble dibble, but they really talking the language, and they laughing, and they cracking jokes in the language that they know, and they remember, but you forgot. So now it sounds like they talking gibberish. Telepathy is guarded by the matriarchy. It's a heart link connection, mitochondrial frequency information transfer. And so everybody doesn't have access to the faculty to telepathically communicate. But everybody has the faculty, they just don't have access, because you need a combination of a certain type of women in order to give you access. You have to earn your right. Because the last time, a whole bunch of people got killed because one of the so-called guys said that they was too noisy. Their psychic chatter was interfering with his solitude. Bitch ass nigga. If you can train telepathy. I know how to teach it, but I can't. I have to have like people playing their parts to teach it. But yeah, it's a classroom exercise. Well, we used to have our classrooms in the field. We didn't have no four walls method. We had the open air method. We was doing something while we was using what we was doing as a tool to teach. Yeah, he was a bitch ass nigga. Sissy ass. My mama used to use telepathy on me. I didn't know what it was. I just thought I was hearing voices. Cause I used to dip. And then I hear my mama calling me, Rodney. And I'm like, y'all hear that? And everybody around me like, we don't hear nothing. And I'm like, okay. Well, I know my mama's voice, and I know she calling me. But I'm not gonna act like I don't hear her. So the territory that's being restored under the matriarch right now is the Western Territory, and the annexing of the territory of the Caliphs, which is also the Afro chiefs that was displaced on the West Coast. And now, in modern terms, the LA niggas on the rise. City of Angels, mofo. Red and blue. They got a knot in that shit now. It's a unity knot. All of the tribes is on deck. You can keep sleeping on them if you want to. Cali about taking their business back. All you gotta do is watch the little stories they telling you in the media that they minimizing what's actually taking place by telling you they planning on giving somebody reparations. We all know reparations is a carrot on the stick to make you surrender your birthright by forfeit. We ain't buying that. We not buying that. So the rare bird appeared in Oregon at the same time that the train, the Empress, was rolling across 3 countries: Canada, America, and Mexico. Not a coincidence. These are all knocks. The CIA uses the headlines to conceal the fact that you don't know what's going on the land, and they do, and they rubbing it in your face to humiliate you when you see that they've been telling us all along that the tribes is on the recovery effort, and it's just a matter of time Reparations ain't gonna get no land back. Reparations has nothing to do with land. So soon as you tie reparations to land, you got to find the land you originally from. And if you claim you are descendant of Africans that was held in bondage, you got to find your tribe in Africa to get your birthright, because the only land you are you inherit is the land of your ancestors. Your ancestral lands is what we call your sacred lands. This is why they can't run none of that on us that has been over here generation after generation after generation after generation, because we know our people, we know how we move, we know why we do stuff we do. So when the scientists are saying, I don't know why the black people does that, we know why we do it, because that stuff that's in us that ain't on us, that you can't take from us, no matter how much you try to deprive us of it. You might be able to steal the capital that it produces, but you can't steal the talent. You might be able to steal all of the books that we write, but you can't steal the knowledge that we use to write them. The same way is you might be able to cover up all of our historical records with a whitewashed history, but you can't cover up the history that's in the DNA. And this is why the blood right is the first right of the earth right, and the first right of the earth right is the birthright of the mothers. And if you don't know that, then you don't know what's going on earth, right? This is our natural birthright, to reclaim earth at the close of the age. The age closed. We in phase 4, reconstruction, reconstitution of government. There's a whole nother paradigm playing out while y'all watching the political debacle be dangled in your face as if it's a true story in real time, when all the time it's a play. It's the great pantomime is what they call it in the military industrial complex. They're running the pantomime. Now it's time for us to start connecting the mothers across the land, the tribal mothers, not no regular, we ain't talking about the booty shakers at the clubs. We love them too, because we know that that's old musical conjure, rolling of the hips, right? Go back to Bobby Hemmett. See, he said that vulgar shit. That's what we into. He's not telling you that it's a science. The uterus is a musical instrument. And as long as them women is dancing, rolling their hips and shaking their rump shaker, the universe know life has a chance on that planet. Right? Life have a chance on that planet because the music is playing from the uterus directly to source. Because it's the only thing that's directly connected to source. So y'all be thinking, oh, look at her, she's so ratchet out here shaking her butt. Yeah, you better hope she don't stop shaking it, and the ones similarly situated, because when them uteruses stop sending that song out, somebody in trouble, and it ain't gonna be me, because I'm gonna do my part. Yeah, I don't care if you native, a Pan-Africanist, if you a Haitian, Jamaican, don't nobody know what a black motherfucker is for real. Because those are the tribes that was at war. You can't be free black. Because to be free black, you have to first conquer the free whites. And the free whites ain't white, and as long as you think they look like they white, you lost the game already. They look like us, but they ain't us. Hey, Hadia. She in here. I got a couple more minutes before I had to go on this other. I had 3 minutes. I got another live coming up. But Hadia, I was just telling them about you and the work you do, and that's what was the original purpose of the Califia Castle, and that there was a women's resort for the woman that was holding the Califia seat. It's no coincidence that Califia and Khalifa in Islam sound similar. That's not an accident, because the priestesses become each other as they pass the torch. They keep the same title, like Isis. Isis is not a name. It's not a personal name. It's a title to a position. The same with Inanna. It's just a different culture, and it's the same title, right? So when you understand these titles and names, it's not the same. Even half the names in the Bible, not names. They titles, or they descriptive nouns that's telling you something, but they not translating it, they transliterating it. And this is keeping the frustration and the understanding of that religious paradigm from ever being broke free from, because you thinking that David is a man. No, David literally mean my beloved, right? So whenever somebody was being referred to as Dawid, they were saying my beloved. And Daniel means the judge of God, God's judge. So when they was referring to the priest, remember, his name wasn't Daniel. He was one of the three, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who was thrown in the furnace. But when he came out the furnace unscathed is when they named him Daniel, right? The judgment of God. They say, oh shit, he didn't burn in the fire. He walked out, and they tried to throw him to the lions, and the lions shut their mouth. And they say the only thing that got to prove that he is God's judgment. It has nothing to do with the name of a man. It could have been a woman for all we know, with all these cross-dressing priests out here pretending to be the priestesses of the matriarchs, and all the time they priests with testosterone and testicles, mad because their uterus fell out. Yep. Mississippians make up a whole lot of tribes. Like, all of the root tribes of the land is under the Mississippian culture. All up inside both sides of the Mississippi River is where the oldest tribes was established. And then we branched out to other parts of the land, and this is why the roots always trace back to the Mississippi River in one form or another. And so now we need to be reawakening the matriarchs, making them, bringing them together. They don't have to. This is what a lot of people think, they got to do something. They just got to meet. This is called tying the grid. The grid is tied by the most matriarchs reaching out to each other just for general acknowledgement, right? And when this happens, the energy is connecting. This energy transferring every time that takes place. So bring the tribal mothers you are aware of together just to say hi. You don't need no other reason. And you tying that energy of the matriarchs across the land, because they can't stop it. We too far into it to turn around. We've been past the point of no return about 9 months now. Ain't no turning back from here. We at the event horizon now. We done beyond critical mass, right? But we still need to do our part until we see it play out physically, because we moving spiritual energy in the 3-dimensional realm, which requires us to understand how the energy moves. And when you put the power where the power belongs, everything run the way that it's supposed to run. I don't care if the patriarchy was the right way to run the land, then I would be a patriarch. No. Matriarchy has been the only thing that proved to end wars. Every time the patriarch's in control in the historical record of the human family, we've been at war. Every time the mothers assert their right to reclaim the war stop. So if we want the wars to stop, we got to put the great mothers back But if we want to keep going to war in this warring culture, we on some low vibration, low frequency stuff. I still get mad because I be wanting to tear something up. It's not the time to tear nothing up. It's time to build ourselves up. We got to build ourselves, build our sisters and our brothers, just by being who we are. So remember, the love key is the key to free Malachi. For all of the ones who want to know, if they don't know the love key, they don't know what it is, then they lost. They need to go find out so they can be of some assistance. It's there. All the information in the public. Find the love key, and you can set the captives free. But as long as we keep overlooking the divine right of the mother to protect the child and the divine edict of the fathers to protect the mothers that's protecting the children, then once we get that and we put that in its proper position, the machine gonna run the way it's supposed to run. The difference in patriarchy is a patriarch, and this also goes to intelligence, by the way. The patriarchs will put a person in a position to perform a function that is as clueless to what they doing and micromanage them while they doing the function. Now watch how the matriarchy do. The matriarchies want to know who is the most qualified to fulfill this function. You hold this function until somebody more qualified come along, and then you retire. Sometimes you have to train your own replacement in order for them to be properly trained, in order for them to take the position to perform the function that you formerly was performing. It's a relay race. It's a trickle down of information. It's laying the cards out on the table so you can understand what's taking place, right? Once all the cards is out on the table, then you realize that, wait a minute, we've been playing cards on my table the whole time, and until we flipped all these cards over, it didn't even dawn on me that the cards was telling me that we at my table. So, I gotta go over here to this other channel, and cause I got another video I gotta do. I don't know how to post the link on my Instagram, but I can post it on my Facebook. But I gotta see where we might be broadcasting from Instagram. I'm not sure yet. But remember this: if anything in you is giving you a validation to dislike somebody, to hate somebody, to look down on somebody, to treat somebody lesser, you have self-work to do. Those were the tools used to oppress us. And them same tools is going to be our obstacle to our liberation, because what they used to oppress us got us conditioned to turn the racism around, never knowing that the racism was not what they told us and showed us it was. It was something else being played out in legalese, and we had no knowledge of it, right? So the knowledge of the law begin to help you to see through the veil of ignorance that keeps you repeating the patterns of self-defeated behavior. Why would you want to defeat yourself when you got enemies outside you that you could be more enjoyably defeating, right? But sometimes your biggest obstacle and your biggest enemy is yourself. So sometimes you have to face the self until you conquer the self before you can face the enemy without. You have to get rid of the enemy within. That applies on a personal level, social level, family level, in every level. You can't do nothing. The enemy on the outside can't do nothing once you conquer the inner enemy. The inner enemy is the natural infiltration process. We've been taught to infiltrate our own psychological makeup and to feel like victims, so that when we start moving into positions of power, we will be abusive and reverse the same bullshit back on everybody else that we believe was inflicting that shit on us. Look, I'm all about the drama. I'm with the smoke. But when I see the methods used to keep us into a dupe position, a victim position, a miseducated position, I don't want to participate in that. I don't want to participate in that. I'm not going to participate in it because I've grown beyond it, and now it's asinine and childish to me. I don't care what your political party is. I don't care what your religious denomination, sect, or organization is. That don't have nothing to do with me. That's your personal choice on how you choose to establish what you believe to be your relationship with God. But when it comes to nature, I'm going to follow nature, because whatever your God is and wherever he came from, he have not been here longer than nature. So therefore, he can't be wiser than nature, because nature knows what's natural to the human. It's just that the human wants somebody that look like them to tell them what's natural to them, even if it's foreign, so they can have an excuse to do dumb shit. I don't need no excuses. If I'm going to do some dumb shit, I'm going to be like, yep, I knew it was dumb before I did it. I just wanted to see what it felt like to do some dumb shit. Yeah. So let me get on over here. Keep an eye on my channel. It might be a Instagram live, I'm not sure. But keep an eye on my channel for a few minutes. If I don't pop up by 11, which is 6 minutes, then look for a link on my Facebook page. I don't know what we're going to be talking about, but shout out to Callie in the house. 5 bears coming to tear up some shit. And it's going down, even if you don't see it.